Hi everyone, welcome back to Pine Hollow out of Diagnostics. Today we have an older American truck in the shop. Neighbor brought it over. He said he just bought it from some kid in town, and the problem that he's having is the dash, the instrument cluster, is completely dead. The gauges, warning lights, but he said when he pushes the parking brake pedal, the cluster comes back to life, and then it shows a no bus message. Very weird symptoms. The truck seems to start and run just fine. Let's verify the customer complaint and see where this goes. Alright, so this is a 2000 Dakota V8. So that's key on. No signs of life at all. If I press the brake pedal here, look at that. Some stuff comes back to life. You can see the mileage now. Then the prindle goes crazy. Let's see if it starts. Okay, that was slightly weird. Okay, so now prindle went crazy again. It's not, oh, there it goes. Now it's showing the right gear. And if I let go of the parking brake, so if I release this, the whole cluster just goes completely blank. See, the RPMs drop down. Press the brake pedal again. Boom. It's okay, so now it's weird. It's probably going to say no bus because the RPM gauge is still not working. Okay, so now it came back. See how the gauges came back? I mean, all the warning lights are on. And if we wait a little while, ABS light came on, prindle went crazy, RPM is stuck, so it lost communication again. See, it's blinking. The odometer is going to say no bus very soon. It says no bus. Let me shift into reverse. Shift it into neutral. Shift it into drive. Can we restore the communication here? Let me release the brake. Press the brake again. And, oh, no bus again. So we restored it for a little bit, and now it's back to life. So those are the symptoms. Place your bets now. What is wrong with this Dodge? Definitely a ghost. So I did a full code scan. Obviously we don't have too many modules on a 2000 truck here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 modules. PCM says no message from TCM. So PCM and TCM apparently on this model are separate units, separate modules. Auto shutdown relay, fuel pump relay, no cluster bus message. ABS says ROM checksum. Okay. TCM says bus communication with engine module. Check shifter signal, loss of prime, gear ratio error in reverse, transmission relay always on. Internal TCM, battery was disconnected. And airbag says cluster message mismatch, warning lamp circuit open shorted, no CCD bus communication, no cluster CCD bus message. Let me delete all the trouble codes right now. We have them saved in the report. We'll see what comes back. Look at that. the Prindle came back as soon as we started talking to the TCM. Okay, still says no bus over there. Odometer came back as soon as I started talking to the ABS module. And that's the airbags. Something goofy is going on. So one code left, warning lamp circuit opener shorted. The airbag warning lamp is on. If I close the door, no change. If I let go of the brake, the whole cluster goes asleep. And it comes back if you push the parking brake. That is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Well, we need a wiring diagram, check powers and grounds to this cluster, and see how the e-brake switch could possibly cause this symptom. Alright, so this is the default state of the cluster with the parking brake depressed. Let me just make sure the other indicator lights work. So if we turn on the lights, high beam indicator works. If we turn on the four-wheel drive, that works. What else? Let's try Prindle again. Reverse, neutral drive. Okay. And if I release the parking brake, whole thing goes dead. If I push the parking brake and see cruise. So that's a good starting point. Let's at least figure out why, if you disable the, disengage the parking brake, why the cluster goes dead. Let's look at a wiring diagram. So I'm trying to shut the truck off. I turn the key off. It's still running. Okay, that's bizarre. Let's try again. A very short prime. Okay, I don't like that. It disengaged the starter. Let's try again. So there's definitely a ghost. Definitely a ghost. Maybe a bad ground? Perhaps? This is going to be fun. Hopefully all the problems are related and we can find it pretty quickly. Alright, from ALLDATA, I've printed off the wiring diagram for this instrument cluster. So let's see what works, what doesn't work, and how this parking brake switch is tied in to the instrument cluster. So it looks like there is, it's a module that controls a lot of the warning lights and also all of the gauges. Now, the brake warning light is controlled not through this module but through pin A3, and pin A3 goes directly to the parking brake switch. So that should be equivalent to the four-wheel drive indicator. When you put in four-wheel drive, pin B10, for example this one, gets grounded on the transfer case. So this should be a dumb light. However, if the instrument cluster is not original to the truck, these pinouts could be different on the board, and instead of turning on this light, perhaps we're getting a ground, and that's the main ground for the instrument cluster. So A3 is the control for the brake warning indicator, at least it's supposed to be. Look, pin A4 is supposed to be a constant ground, and also pin A5. So we know that these lights work fine. The indicator, turn signal indicator lights, a high beam indicator light, those are all, so we know A5 is a good ground. But what about A4? So pin A4 and A3, that's what I want to see. So we have to take this cluster out and do a circuit check on pins A3 and A4. Maybe they're swapped around. I don't know. Let's take a look. It certainly seems that the parking brake switch is providing a ground to the actual board, and that's why everything comes back to life. Alright, so I got the instrument cluster out. Pretty easy, 4 screws. And then we have 2 bulk connectors that actually clip in to the back side of the dash here, and then the cluster, when you slide it in, it engages with the 2 bulk connectors. So all I want to do is go by the wiring diagram and check the pinouts of both of these connectors. They're just 10-pin connectors. So we'll start with this orange wire. I'm looking at the diagram. Let me set this up. This looks like connector B, pin 1 orange interior light system. Okay, second wire should be a black and tan going to the windshield fluid reservoir. That's a black and tan, correct. Third one looks like a blue and red. And here, dark blue and red goes to seat belt switch buckle assembly. Okay, 4 should be blank. 5 is a black and yellow. Yes, black and yellow interior light system. Then we have a light green on pin 6. Yes. Pin 7 is a green with an orange. Light green orange, yes. Pin 8, tan. Yes. Pin 9 looks like a red with a gray. Yes. And pin 10, black and red, going to our 4-wheel drive switch. So this one looks fine. Let's check connector A. Connector A, start with pin 1, black and orange wire. Yep, we have a black and orange. That goes to VTSS control, behind right side of dash, central timer module. Okay, not exactly sure what that does. Pin 2, dark blue and white, comes from a fuse, hot and start or run. Dark blue, white, yes. Pin 3, white and black. That goes to our parking brake switch. Pin 4 should be a black and green. Black and light green, yes, that should be a ground. So let's at least check powers and grounds on here. Pin 5 is a black wire, that should be a ground as well. And pin 6, yellow and white. That goes to a fuse, hot at all times, that should be battery power. And pin 7, dark green and red, goes to ignition switch output. Goes to the Prindle. So pin 7, A7, 4.7 automatic transmission only, transmission control module. Okay. And then what else do we have? Pin 8 is blank, pin 9 white and black, and 10, 9 and 10 should be the communication wires. And those are white and black and violet and brown. Correct. So all the wires are present. Let's just check powers and grounds and see how the wire here for the parking brake assembly is white and black. I disconnected it. How is that tying into, pin 3? How does that make the cluster light up? So I'm checking powers and grounds to the instrument cluster with a test light. So if I find a ground, test light's going to light up. It's connected to battery positive through the power probe cigarette lighter adapter. Now pins 4 and 5 should be grounds. So what I'm seeing here is, if I can get the camera set up, pin 5, black wire, definitely a good ground. Pin 4, the black and green wire, no ground. How about that? Now let me ground out the wire for the parking brake and see if we restore the ground on that black and green wire. Okay, so we're going to ground the signal wire that goes to the parking brake switch. So now the white and black wire should be grounded, and that's pin 3 on our connector, on connector A. So pin 3 is this one. Sure enough, that is now grounded. Now, did pin 4 get grounded? No, it did not. So what I want to do is restore the ground on pin 4, and that's the black and light green. It says left of left front fender G100. We can try to find that, or just temporarily bypass it and see if this fixes the cluster. So doing a quick visual inspection, front of left front fender. This is a black and green wire right here. It's tied into an eyelet. I'm just going to do a little tuck test on it. Oh, that was definitely not grounded. Let's ground this out. Make sure we have restored ground to the cluster and see if it comes back to life normally. Alright, so before fixing that ground the proper way, I'm just going to temporarily ground it. Let's make sure it's restored here. Test light from battery positive. This black and green wire is now a good ground. Perfect. Let me plug the instrument cluster back in. Make sure all the gauges work with the key on. We'll start it up, see if everything's perfect, and then we'll just fix that ground. Alright, moment of truth. So we'll leave the parking brake switch disconnected and key on. Ta-da! Cluster is back to life. All the warning lights disappeared. Let's shut the door. Yes. Fire it up. Okay, the brake and ABS lights are on. Check engine lights on. So let's fix that ground, put all this back together, and see if there are any other issues remaining. So here's the situation with the ground wire. Basically recrimped the insulation part, cleaned off the strands. We're going to solder it right back to the original eyelet right here. So let me heat this up real good with a soldering iron, put some solder in here, and bolt it back to the stud. TS100. If you don't have this in your electrical kit toolbox, this is the first thing you should get, is a good soldering iron. And by the way, this Radio Shack spool is just a spool. I keep winding more different brand solder around it. Check out the Amazon store for all the soldering supplies that I use here in the shop. We're out in the field, so soldering iron's all nice and hot. Let's heat up this joint and see if we can get this wire to stick to this eyelet nicely. Actually looks pretty good. Do a tuck test, bolt this thing back up, take this truck for a test drive. Alright, here we go. Yes. Excellent. Let's take it for a spin. Uh-oh. What is going on here? Crap. We better get this thing out of here before it makes a huge mess. Well, I'm not going to take it too far, but no warning lights. Prindle's good. Odometer's good. The truck still has some life left in it. It just has to fix the transmission cooler leak. Seems to pull to the right quite a bit here. Right. See that? Alright, let's get back before we leak out all the transmission fluid. Alright, I think this Dakota is good shape. Customer complaint definitely addressed. Everything works, even the parking brake indicator works fine. So, bad ground wire for the instrument cluster, but it was on the fender. But just goes to show you have to check powers and grounds before condemning modules or anything like that. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.